In a small valley in the Peloponnesus, the shrine of Asklepios, the god of medicine, developed out of a much earlier cult of Apollo, Maleatus. During the 6th century BC at the latest, as the official cult of the city-state of Epidaurus. Its principal monuments, particularly the Temple of Asklepios, the Thalos and the theatre, considered one of the purest masterpieces of Greek architecture, date from the 4th century. The vast site, with its temples and hospital buildings devoted to its healing gods, provides valuable insight into the healing cults of Greek and Roman times. The prosperity brought by the Asklepios enabled Epidaurus to construct civic monuments, including the huge theatre that delighted Pausanias for its symmetry and beauty. Used again today for dramatic performances, the ceremonial Hestiatorion, banqueting hall, and a palestra. The ancient theatre of Epidaurus was designed by Polykleitos the Younger in the 4th century BC. The original 34 rows were extended in Roman times by another 21 rows, as is usual for Greek theatres, and as opposed to Roman ones. The view on a lush landscape behind the scene is an integral part of the theatre itself and is not to be obscured. It seats up to 14,000 people. The theatre has long had a reputation for its exceptional acoustics, which reportedly allowed almost perfect intelligibility of unamplified spoken words from the proscenium or scene to all 14,000 spectators. Regardless of their seating, a tale often recounted by tour guides. In situ measurements, however, somewhat moderate these claims. Although most sounds can indeed be noticed throughout, intelligibility is not guaranteed, particularly for voice, which requires good projection. Which might not have been a problem for Greek actors, who were reputed experts in this aspect. The acoustic properties are caused both by the physical shape, but also the construction material. The rows of limestone seats filter out low-frequency sounds, such as the murmur of the crowd, and also amplify the high-frequency sounds of the stage. The sanctuary of Asklepios at Epidaurus is a remarkable testament to the healing cults of the ancient world and witness to the emergence of scientific medicine. Situated in the Peloponnese, in the regional unit of Argolis, The site comprises a series of ancient monuments spread over 2 terraces and surrounded by a preserved natural landscape. The theater, together with the temples of Artemis and Asklepios, the Philos, the Enkoimaterion and the Propylaea, comprise a coherent assembly of monuments that illustrate the significance and power of the healing gods of the Hellenic and Roman worlds. The sanctuary is the earliest organized sanatorium and is significant for its association with the history of medicine, providing evidence of the transition from belief in divine healing to the science of medicine. Initially, in the 2nd millennium BCE, it was a site of ceremonial healing practices with curative associations that were later enriched through the cults of Apollo Maleatus in the 8th century BCE, and then by Asklepios in the 6th century BCE. The sanctuary of the 2 gods was developed into the single most important therapeutic center of the ancient world. These practices were subsequently spread to the rest of the Greco-Roman world, and the sanctuary thus became the cradle of medicine. Among the facilities of the classical period are buildings that represent all the functions of the sanctuary, including healing cults and rituals, library, baths, sports, accommodation, hospital and theater. The site is one of the most complete ancient Greek sanctuaries of antiquity, and is significant for its architectural brilliance and influence. The sanctuary of Epidaurus, with the theater, the temples of Artemis and Asklepios, the Philos, the Enkoimaterion, the Propylaea, the banqueting hall, the baths, as well as the sport and hospital facilities, is an eminent example of a Hellenic architectural ensemble of the 4th century BCE. The form of its buildings has exerted great influence on the evolution of Hellenistic and Roman architecture. Philos influenced the development of Greek and Roman architecture, particularly the Corinthian order, while the Enkoimaterion Stoa and the Propylaea introduced forms that evolved further in Hellenistic architecture. In addition, the complicated hydraulic system of the sanctuary is an excellent example of a large-scale water supply and sewerage system that illustrates the significant engineering knowledge of ancient societies. The exquisitely preserved theater continues to be used for ancient drama performances, and familiarizes the audience with ancient Greek thought. The 2nd century AD geographer Pausanias described the myth around the foundation of the temple, as well as its religious significance to the worship of Asklepios. According to him, Coronis, daughter of Phlegyas, had been impregnated by Apollo, and gave birth to Asklepios at Epidaurus, exposing the newborn baby on Mount Mercian, where he was nursed by a goat. The baby Asklepios is depicted with his goat on 2nd century AD Epidaurian coinage. According to Pausanias, the sacred grove of Asklepios is surrounded on all sides by boundary marks. No death or birth takes place within the enclosure. The same custom prevails also in the island of Delos. All the offerings, whether the offerer be one of the Epidaurians themselves or a stranger, are entirely consumed within the bounds. At Titan too, I know, there is this same rule. The image of Asklepios is, in size, half as big as Zeus Olympios at Athens, and is made of ivory and gold. An inscription tells us that the artist was Thrasymmedes, a Parian, son of Arignotos. The god is sitting on a seat grasping a staff, the other hand he is holding above the head of the serpent. There is also a figure of a dog lying by his side. On the seat are wrought in relief the exploits of Argive heroes. When I asked at Epidaurus, why they pour neither water, nor olive oil on the image of Asklepios, the attendants at the sanctuary informed me, that both the image of the god and the throne were built over a cistern. Asanius described the worship and the site's importance as a pilgrimage in the 2nd century. Over against the temple is the place where the suppliants of the god sleep. Near has been built a circular building of white marble, called Thalos, round house. Within the enclosure stood slabs. In my time 6 remained, but of old there were more. On them are inscribed the names of both the men and the women who have been healed by Asklepios, the disease also from which each suffered, and the means of cure. The dialect is Doric. Apart from the others is an old slab, which declares that Hippolytus dedicated 20 horses to the god. The Archeans tell a tale that agrees with the inscription on this slab. That when Hippolytus was killed, owing to the curses of Theseus, Asklepios raised him from the dead. On coming to life again he refused to forgive his father. Rejecting his prayers, he went to the Archeans in Italy. There were many legends, stories and miracles said to have taken place in the temple during the centuries of pilgrimage to it. Cicero alluded the merciful nature of Asklepios when he recounted how Dionysius I of Syracuse allegedly committed sacrilege at the sanctuary without divine punishment. He gave orders for the removal of the golden beard of Asklepios at Epidaurus, saying it was not fitting for the son to wear a beard when his father, Apollo, appeared in all his temples beardless. Nor did Asklepios cause him to waste away and perish of some painful and lingering disease. In the 3rd century, Aelian describes a legendary miracle taking place in the sanctuary. A woman suffered from an intestinal worm, and the cleverest doctors despaired of curing her. Accordingly, she went to Epidaurus and prayed to the god Asklepios, that she might be rid of the complaint that was lodged in her. The god was not at hand. The attendants of the temple, however, made her lie down in the place where the god was in the habit of healing his petitioners. And the woman lay quiet as she was bid. And the ministers of the god addressed themselves to her cure. They severed her head from the neck, and one of them inserted his hand and drew out the worm, which was a monstrous creature. But to adjust the head and to restore it to its former setting, this they always failed to do. Well, the god arrived, and was enraged with the ministers for undertaking a task beyond their skill, and himself with the irresistible power of a god, restored the head to the body and raised the stranger up again. For my part, O King Asklepios, of all gods the kindliest to man, I do not set wormwood, as a cure for intestinal worms, against your skill. Heaven forbid I should be so insensate. But in considering wormwood I was reminded of your beneficent action, and of your astounding powers of healing. And there is no need to doubt that this herb also is a gift from you.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire sleepless nights. You are close like no